Well, look at that. Looky. Washington, D.C., the beautiful capital, Washington Monument. And yes, I am in Washington, D.C. Spent the better part of the day at the White House today. We'll get all that into the show at some point today. But I will tell you, don't get used to the suit. I'm here out of respect for the President of the United States, who will deliver the renewal of the American Dream speech tonight. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday. President Trump is set to deliver the most important speech of his young second term later this evening, and Washington is buzzing with anticipation. Trump's address will center around what I just mentioned, the renewal of the American dream. Can't say it enough, folks. A movement that dates back to Trump's time on the campaign trail. Trump's big speech will certainly be heard around the world, especially with the level of tension that has only grown over the past week. To little surprise, Axios is reporting that some members of the Democrat Party will act like little toddlers that they are and try their very best to disrupt Trump's time at the podium. Let's see how that works out for them. Let's hope that the Democrats don't take a page from the Serbian playbook. Take a look at this. What went down in Parliament in Serbia when the opposition party didn't hear what they liked? There it is. They lit smoke bombs. I mean, Chuck Schumer might throw a cherry bomb over in the corner, and the Supreme Court will go, oh, what was that? Earlier today, I had a great conversation with the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, good friend Brooke Rollins. This is really great. Take a listen to Brooke. She's awesome. Listen. All right, let's bring in, get this, we have a cabinet secretary with us, not only a cabinet secretary, I'm telling you, it's one of the most important cabinets, one of the most important agencies, one of the most important cabinet secretaries in the whole Trump administration, any administration, actually. The Agricultural Secretary, Brooke Rollins, the great Brooke Rollins, is with us. Brooke, really great to have you. I wanted you to give us a sense of what you expect tonight at the big address to the both sessions of Congress. And just a brief thought, and then we'll get some of the meat and potatoes of this interview, and then we'll circle back with some of the other nonsense that the Democrats are doing on the backside of it if you want. But certainly, what do you think you're going to hear tonight?
Well, Eric, first of all, thank you so much for having me. You look very handsome in your suit, and I think we may have color coordinated. So really a joy to be on with you, and what an incredible blessing to have the opportunity to serve President Trump, our ag community, and the country as we fight to make America great again. And I think the American people have seen this first 30 days, and our shock and awe is exactly what they voted for. So what a joy. To your question, though, it's interesting. I'm at the White House right now. I walked onto your beautiful set. I'm just so impressed. But interestingly, to your question, what I just walked across the street from the West Wing over here to the Eisenhower Building was previewing the president's speech tonight. So hot off the presses, news for your folks. It's a humdinger, and I mean that's a Texas term, by the way. It's a humdinger in the best possible way. I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying he will go directly to the heart of the matter, which is this country has been in economic malaise. We have been in dysfunction and decline for the last 4 years. I think that what I call the great pause, which is the time between term one and term two, while I, sat there brokenhearted to see everything that President Trump went through to get back to the White House, I think sometimes God has a bigger plan, and that opportunity to prepare for the second term and for tonight, for the president at the joint session of Congress in front of his cabinet, the Supreme Court, both the House and the U.S. Senate, and the 30, 40, 50 million people that'll be watching around the country. They're going to hear words from a president who is joyful, who is intentional, who is here to get the job done, who realizes that God chose him for this time. There's no other explanation other than we're in a miracle. And now that God has given us this opportunity, doing everything we can to save this great country.
Indeed, Secretary, indeed. And when that bullet just grazed, took a part of his ear out and didn't do what it was intended to do, I think we all realized that there was a bigger plan for Donald Trump and America. Secretary, I'd like to bring this to what's been going on with Ukraine. I don't know if folks understand how, well, first of all, the Agricultural Secretary develops policy for America's farmland, very, very important, but some people may not realize that Ukraine is one of the major producers of agricultural products for Europe and maybe even the rest of the world. And I was wondering when Trump said, I want mineral rights and I want some rare earth. Maybe there was an opportunity to expand it further into maybe some agricultural products as well. I don't think the deal's off the table. Personally, I'm with Trump. I think he did the right thing by tossing Zelensky out of the office. But if they do come back, is there maybe an opportunity to make some sort of trade for assistance, some agricultural products?
Well, the way I think about this, and maybe I have been around my boss, Donald Trump, for gosh, almost 8 years straight, then I'm beginning to think more like him, the art of the deal. There is always a deal to be made, always, on behalf of America. And since I agreed, and with the greatest honor, to take this job and in building out what we want the next 4 years to look like, our farmers and our ranchers are hurting. It's perhaps one of the worst economic times, in large part due to the last 4 years under Joe Biden. But frankly, it's been a tough run for our ag community, our farmers and our ranchers, for a long time. One of the most important things that we need to do is expand market access. To your point, to move our great farmers and ranchers' product around the world. And there are countries that haven't lived up to their side of the deal, which is why you see President Trump using tariffs right now. There's going to be, I think, it's a new day in America and around the world. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance represent a leadership, an energetic leadership that I think is perhaps similar to, akin to, and similar to the revolution in 1776. We will not take no for an answer. We have a country to save. We've got to pull America back from the brink. It's time to be the world's leader again, peace through strength. And that's what you're seeing with the Zelensky deal. But I think one of the great untold stories of this administration, untold to date, of course, we're 30 days in, but hopefully when we finish and walk out of here in 4 years, is that you had a cabinet and you had a president and you had a vice president and you had an administration that was so in sync, that was so collaborative, that worked together across the entire system of the federal government to return power to the people, to open markets around the world, to bring peace back to the world, to make America great again. And so, to your point, I think you're going to see a lot of the cabinet working together very, very closely in a way that perhaps we haven't seen since the beginning of our country.
Indeed. Secretary, how they threw you a hot potato, almost literally. Bidenomics wrecked the American economy. Inflation was off the chart. Trump gave Biden a 1.4% inflation rate. He jacked it up to 9%. It never went below, I believe, 3.5%. And again, that's on top of the 9%, kept going higher. So you inherit a $10 dozen of eggs. You inherit corn that's maybe 40% higher than when Donald Trump left office the last time. You inherited that inflation. What are the avenues to bring those Biden inflation numbers down for the American people?
It's a really important point, and I think that most Americans understand that what we inherited, and what you said is 1,000% true. That 4 years of bigger spending. I mean, it's a joke. I even say the Inflation Reduction Act money that Biden shoved into these non-governmental organizations and climate Green New Deals and DEI programs, and it was billions upon tens of billions of dollars. Even in the last few months before that administration left, they were shuffling money out the door that we are just now beginning to understand in our agencies and through Doge and some other great avenues. But I think what we do know is this: in the last administration, we were absolutely relentless in deregulating, right? I mean, it was like for every one new rule, 5, 10, 15, 20 had to go. But we didn't really have the model for that. We had the states, and we knew some of the states like my Texas that had done similar things, had seen great economic prosperity. But what the last administration taught us, last Trump administration, was that when you deregulate, when you lower taxes, when you take the burden off of the burden of government off of the taxpayer, off of the entrepreneur, off of the mom and the dad trying to raise their family, when you get government out of the way, the economy absolutely will soar. And we saw that before, right? The lowest poverty rates, the highest job rates, the highest housing rates, et cetera. So now we know what to do. And I think that's why you see President Trump moving so very quickly is because while it may have taken us just a little bit more time the last time, because it was a new administration, the president only spent 5 nights in Washington until he was elected in 8 years ago. But now we know. And so you will see an unraveling of that regulatory state. You will see, hopefully through Congress, an extension of the Trump tax cuts from the first time, but even additional tax cuts. You will see an administration that is so focused on bringing jobs and manufacturing and bringing our farmers and ranchers back to an era of prosperity. But that doesn't happen overnight, right? It's going to take us just a little bit of time. The eggs is just one example of that, the price of corn, et cetera, just one example. But I feel so confident in President Trump's leadership, in his vision, in the team he has put around him, in the people like you that are out there telling the story. I think that we're going to see some prosperity sooner than anyone could have imagined, and that will last for hopefully decades and decades and perhaps hundreds of years to come.
Will we, Secretary, will we be able to protect farmers? It's one of the most important industries we have, agriculture as well as energy.
It is.
You know, and the whole idea of the farm bill and whatnot. And I think farmers may be a little bit concerned that maybe some of the assistance that they've had and they've needed. Frankly, food prices are of the most volatile things on the planet with energy.
Right.
And some of those folks don't have the money to last to a second bad harvest. So will that assistance stay in place?
Well, and I would even say it's even one more level up than what you just noted on the importance. Food security is national security, right? If we are not able to have a strong agriculture community, if our farmers and ranchers cannot rebound from the last 4 years, but frankly, the last few decades, then we not only have a massive issue on our hands in terms of the disintegration of the fabric of this country and what made America great, but we also have a pretty massive national security problem on our hands. But I believe that even, the tariffs, labor questions, et cetera, it is a very complicated, very sticky basket of issues. But at the end of the day, once the president's vision is enacted, once we continue to move forward, once we replenish and ensure that we have the funds necessary at USDA to make any short-term harm whole amongst our farmers and ranchers, just like we did in the last Trump administration, and then eventually move into the new economy. I think that, and the president has said this, he said, Brooke, let all of our farmers and ranchers know that they are going to see more prosperity than they've seen in their lifetimes once we finish with this plan.
That's terrific. That is really good news. I know we speak to a lot of folks out there, and they're very concerned. Again, we have to have food security. We can't have farmers selling their farmland, especially to foreigners, because they can't afford 1 or 2 or 3 bad harvests because it's so volatile. The prices are so volatile. Brooke, if I may, I'll call you Brooke for this question.
Yes, please,
okay.
please.
Okay,
absolutely.
Brooke, how is Brooke Rollins enjoying being one of the most important people on the planet, cabinet secretary? Are you having fun with this? Is it enjoyable, or is it just nonstop work with that guy in the Oval who I know loves to work too?
Yes, and I am similar. What I will say, Eric, is this. This job is hard. The pressure is every day. Fighting the darkness, right? The radical left and those who are working around every corner to make sure that we fail. That's hard. But at the end of the day, the joy and the hope and the fulfillment, the righteous, sort of the dignity and being called. I believe that God has called this team to meet this moment, that in many ways it is biblical, that God is with us. I always tell people when they say, well, what can we do? How do we help? I say, just pray for us. And I can feel that shroud of protection around myself, my family, my fellow cabinet members, my amazing team at USDA. And I believe sincerely that we are in a moment in history that will be judged maybe in 50 years, 100 years after you and I are long gone, maybe 250 years when we reach the second part, celebrating 250 next year, the first 250. I think that this moment in time will be judged just like the revolution, perhaps similar to Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s, as the moment that our country was at a crossroads and that the American people chose the path of freedom and liberty and the Constitution. And in so doing, we saved the greatest country in the history of the world and created more peace and prosperity than we even knew was imaginable at the time.
Well, we're going to leave it at that because that's a real inspiring note, and we hear your word, Brooke, and I'll go back to Secretary Brooke Rollins. I appreciate your time. Ag Secretary, the big old building right over there.
Yes.
Those are your folks. It really must be amazing.
Those are my people.
Brooke Rollins.
Now we're getting them back to
Those are
work. I'm like, you guys need to come back to work. But yes, those are my people. Call me Brooke anytime. What a joy to be on with you, Eric. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, and keep doing the great work. And we'll be listening for you. We'll look for you too tonight.
Yes,
thank you,
tonight. We'll be there. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, folks, we will be right back with a lot more show. We got a congressman, we got great John Solomon, and a whole bunch of sights and sounds of D.C. We're in D.C. today. See you in a minute. So I'm hearing it's cold in Washington, D.C. People complaining, oh, it's so cold. Bowling here in West Palm Beach. It looks so pretty. It's so cold. I get here. It's like 55 degrees. I didn't need the jacket. I walked over to the White House in this, and I'm literally sweating on the way back. Anyway, we're back. Let's just jump right into this. It's a huge, huge day, folks, today. This big speech happening tonight. Representative William Timmons, he's a Republican from South Carolina. He's also on the Doge subcommittee, which is important, and also the House Committee on Finance. Representative Timmons, welcome to the Bolling Show. I'd love to get your sense of what you think, especially with regards to Doge. What do you think Trump's going to talk about tonight and Doge, and tell us what you're expecting the reaction to be.
You know, the environment's electric. I spent the last year crisscrossing the country trying to get the American people to save the American dream, telling them that the only person who can do that is Donald Trump. And here we are, 77 million Americans sided with President Trump. They told the world that we need change. And Donald Trump's here. He's going to talk about all the success we've had in the first 2 months. He's going to talk about what's to come. But most important, he's going to talk about how he's going to renew the American dream for generations. And I just couldn't be more excited to be a part of it. As for the Doge effort, look, we got $1.8 trillion annual deficit, $36 trillion in debt. We have to change course. We cannot continue down this reckless path. So yes, President Trump has asked Elon Musk to lead an effort in the administration to go agency by agency and find waste, fraud, and abuse. And they've been very successful up to this point, but we still have a lot of work to do. And the frustrating thing for me is that the Democrats are kicking and screaming the whole way. And we're going to get to the bottom of exactly why that is, but we're going to make these much needed changes so we can save the American dream. That's exactly what tonight's going to be about. And I just couldn't be more honored to be a part of it.
To be a part of it, and we're going to watch in around 9:10 or so when the president begins, and it's amazing that whole leading up to it. It's basically a State of the Union without their name, because the first year of a presidency, as every presidency, you can't take credit or blame for the last 4 years of the last knucklehead that just left. But then you're on your side, the Republicans are all going to be very enthusiastic, and you should be. There's a lot of groundswell of support around conservatism, and especially America First, Trump, MAGA, Maha. Great. The other side, I hear there's 10 or 12 Congress people who aren't going to even show up. Do you think there'll be any outbursts? I mean, it's been growing every couple of times. Nancy Pelosi rips up the speech. Do you think the Democrats will act like the toddlers and children that they are?
They're absolutely going to act like petulant children. They're mad that their tours are being taken away. They're mad that we're going to stop the gravy train. But, as for the fact that this isn't actually a State of the Union, we have done more in the last 2 months than Biden did in 4 years. You got to think, for 4 years, Biden said that he couldn't stop the flow of millions and millions of illegal immigrants into this country. In the last month, we had the lowest number of crossings ever. I think it was less than 10,000. Biden's average was 400,000 a month. It's insane. So while this is not a State of the Union, Trump is still going to take credit for all the things he's accomplished in such a short period of time. Permitting reform, energy deregulation. We're going to see the consequences of that take shape over the next coming months. But we are righting all the wrongs of the last 4 years of of the previous administration, and we can't do it fast enough.
I would say, 44 days, today's day 44 days in, you're righting all the wrongs of the last 4 years and then 8 years of Barack Obama, maybe even further, because Trump is really going at it this time. The first Trump term, he brought on some people. He's new to D.C. I mean, you have to hire 10,000 people to work for the federal government. in a year, he didn't know the people he knows now. He brought in some really, really stellar cabinet secretaries. We had Brooke Rollins on and others. But I want to focus on the Democrats being petulant children, as you point out. Do you think there'll be any sort of outbursts? I mean, this has happened in the past. You know, you're from South Carolina. We've had people from both sides. You know, I remember Joe Wilson saying to Barack Obama, "You lie," and there was a big thing. And then we've had. Yeah, go ahead. So you think there'll be some of that?
Joe Wilson was not wrong. Obama was lying. But
Correct.
listen,
correct.
I think the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is I read reports that some of the Democrats are considering throwing eggs. I got to go ahead and tell you, I would not throw anything at the president. It will not go well for you if that is something you're considering.
Oh, heck yeah. Oh, heck yeah. Talk to us a little bit about you come from a district, and the reason why I point this out, it's South Carolina 4, Greenville, Spartanburg. It really almost represents Americana, the middle of America, with the exception of the two liberal coasts. I mean, you go from a more agricultural society economy to a more upscale new society economy, BMW, a couple of the car companies, whatever. And in Greenville, a lot of arts and culture. Really, I would say it's a cross-section of America. Tell us how Trump is doing in your district.
He's overwhelmingly popular. And that sounded like a great pitch for moving to the Greenville and Spartanburg. So I appreciate that. But, you know, we really are doing great. And I tell people that the upstate of South Carolina is a perfect example of the renaissance that we can have. Washington, D.C. policies in the 70s and 80s killed my district. We were one of the largest textile manufacturers in the world, and environmental and labor regulations that, while well-intentioned, drove hundreds of thousands of jobs to China. So we picked ourselves back up. We incentivized Michelin to locate their North American headquarters. We got BMW. They employ 15, 16,000 people, and then their suppliers employ another probably 20, 30,000. We've got so much foreign direct investment. We have the largest, this is a bizarre stat, we're the largest coffee manufacturing district in the country and the world. We have K-Cup is manufacturing 4.5 billion K-Cups every year in my district. So look, we're doing fantastic. And this is exactly the kind of thing Trump wants. Trump wants business to invest in the country, in South Carolina, all over the country, and we have to maintain a domestic manufacturing capacity.
Love the free state of South Carolina. Love the fact that car companies go down there so they have to be part of the UAW auto workers. But sir, very quickly, only have about a minute or so, so keep it tight if you don't mind. I would like your opinion. Reuters is now reporting that there may be some minerals deal with Zelensky. Your thoughts on whether that's a good idea, one. And number two, very quickly again, NATO. Should we pull out of NATO? I mean, I'm a firm believer with Steve Bannon and everyone else, we should be out of NATO. Your thoughts on both of those quickly, if you don't mind.
All right. Well, look, President Trump said during the campaign that he was going to end the war, and he's going to do that. And Zelensky's kicking and screaming, just like the Democrats are kicking and screaming that we're trying to save money. But at the end of the day, it is in our strategic interest to have a rare earth minerals deal with Ukraine because we have a supply chain issue that threatens our national security. So we've already invested $100 billion plus into their security. So why can't we solve one of our problems by harnessing their natural resources to fix some of our concerns? As for NATO, I think we have an important role in the global community. We have to lead. And yes, we're going to stop all of our ridiculous USAID funding. We're going to go down to zero, but then we're going to build back up. There's things that we do need to do to make sure that we're leading in the global community and we're not letting China get ahead of us. Good. So I do think we need to stay in NATO, but we have to be very methodical about making sure they're shouldering their share of the burden and they're meeting their obligations. And that's something that we got to stand firm on. But I do think that we're going to see the Ukraine deal come to a close here shortly. And I think that the war will end just like President Trump said it would.
I might hear some announcements tonight. Hurry up and get there. Get on that aisle so when he comes down, you can maybe shake his hand or pat him on the shoulder. Representative William Timmons, South Carolina, Republican, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be right back, folks. Oh, look at that. I believe that's the Supreme Court. I'm looking at the return up. That looks like Supreme Court. John, that's the Supreme Court.
That is the Supreme Court, yeah.
That's the Supreme
That
Court,
is.
by the way. Are we going to get another conservative on the bench? Maybe in Trump. He got 3 already. It's fantastic. Let's bring in John Solomon, who's been kind enough to let me borrow his set from his show, Just the News, which airs here in about a little hour and a half or so.
Hour and a half, yeah.
John Solomon, also the editor of Just the News. John,
First,
really-
welcome aboard to Real America's Voice.
Thank
We
you.
are stronger and better with you here. You've done a great job. The first week has been boffo. And that interview you did with Brooke Rollins was brilliant because for 4 years I heard nothing in this town, but there's nothing we can do about inflation. You just have to put up with it. Here's a woman in just a few weeks is already putting a plan to fight eggs prices and inflation and not making excuses for the things that government has been excusing for 4 years. That was a great interview. I really enjoyed it.
And she makes a very good point, the importance of our farming industry. Our farmers are so important. And you know, what's happening is that the farmers have a couple of bad years. They can't afford to withhold it, and then they sell. They sell a lot of times to foreign investors, and all of a sudden foreigners are owning our farmland. Our food prices go up. We can't do a thing about it. No. But she said he's on it, Trump's on it, and you know, the Farm Bill is important to our farmers.
Oh, it is. And, you know, all the time he spent in Middle America with the farmers, you look at some of those extraordinary events he had, farmers were in the crowd. He gets that industry and he knows how it's hanging by a thread. And I think this administration will put a lot of beef behind building back these farms and creating a business model.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I slipped on it. Sorry about that. That's my bad.
Can we talk a little bit about this? Your Reuters reporting that a minerals deal is happening. What do you know? You're one of
I've been talking to folks.
Best insiders in D.C.
I've been talking to folks. It is moving in that direction. President Trump would love to get it done tonight if it can legitimately be done. They don't want Zelensky backing out anymore of stuff. So before they sign it or they get to that point, they want to make sure Zelensky understands the terms and what comes next, and he's willing to follow through. But today's the day that Volodymyr Zelensky folded. He basically realized, I can't take on the United States. I need them in my foxhole right now or I lose Russia. He went to Europe. Europeans are great, except they have lousy military. And oh, by the way, they've been buying Russia's oil the last 4 years and keeping the Russia war machine going. He needs the United States. I think this was the capitulation moment. I think we could see things accelerate, but I think the Trump administration can be a little more careful than this time. They want to make sure he's locked in before they make any more announcements.
Do you know, and I wish I knew this, the minerals deal, we get rare earth and you know, important minerals, lithium, cadmium, a bunch of rare earth metals and whatnot, but what is the deal? Are they going to pay us for what we've already given them, or are we talking about...
We're going to go in jointly and help them harvest these minerals that have been under the ground for a long time, but not always harvested. It's in an unusual area of Ukraine that doesn't have a lot of infrastructure. It's going to be more than a decade before the United States realizes significant financial benefit from it. But there is a nuance to this that I think Volodymyr Zelensky completely missed when he did that little rigmarole in the Oval Office. And that is, when the president declares he's interested in this region, it means America's interested in this region. If you're Putin, you're going to be a little more cautious about attacking that region in the future. It's sort of a de facto nuanced security protection. Zelensky didn't appreciate that. He seems to appreciate it a little bit more. Some of his language the last couple of days. If America's in that corridor, right near the Russian border, it means that Putin's going to be far less likely to want to attack it because Americans are likely going to be on the ground. So it had the effect of having sort of a soft security guarantee, which I think the Ukrainians missed in the first nuances.
You know, some of the most valuable minerals and rare earth are in the Crimea region, which is Russian control right now. So is there any sort of discussion about getting that region back, especially, or even harvesting the minerals from that?
Or here's an interesting idea. What if President Trump created a minerals deal for Ukraine and then said to Russia, we'll help you harvest on their side and we'll give you a market. Remember, Russia already sells some of its uranium to us. Why not rare earth? It's a lot better than China getting it.
Yes. I know Zelensky... this is a nuance, but you know, we're in the business of nuance, right? And words matter.
It does.
Zelensky, I believe today, said it's regrettable what happened. Right. Now, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, he's apologizing." That's not an apology, John.
No, it's
regrettable. It's not. I'm sorry. It's regrettable that Pamela Anderson doesn't wear makeup anymore. I'm not sorry. I didn't tell her not to wear makeup. So there's a big difference. Will Trump demand an apology?
I don't think so. Listen, the president is driven by the desire to end this war and stop the senseless bloodshed. We could be somewhere near 1.5, 1.7 million dead soldiers. There's not a good count, but the U.S. intelligence thinks it's getting closer to that on both sides combined. That's a massive human loss of life to move a few miles in either direction. It's been a big loss, and it puts an entire generation of two countries at risk. There won't be men to father children in these countries, and he wants to get it over. I think he'll call this an apology and say, Zelensky apology me, thanks, let's get going and get the deal done. I think that's the way Donald Trump runs.
He seems to really want this deal.
He does.
Like,
It's personal to him.
Yeah,
he said in one of the interviews recently, I've seen the satellite imagery of these men being mowed down senselessly. Looks like the Civil War. They're dropping like flies. There's no reason for this. I want to end it. And I think what he did with Israel and Hamas, getting them to agree to something that Joe Biden couldn't get him to do, I think he wants to do it here. It's personal for him.
Yeah, interesting that this morning I'm on the plane coming to D.C. and I read that the European Union is now talking about coming up with this is an interesting number, folks, $840 billion for their own defense. Today.
Yeah.
Today when Trump says, watch it, NATO, we might pull out. Why shouldn't we pull out of NATO?
I think if you were to pull out of NATO right now, President Trump knows it would weaken his hands with Vladimir Putin. He still has to push Putin to the right place to get the right deal for Europe for the long term. If you're pulling out of NATO, that gives him a sense, hey, I got some more room to play here. I think Donald Trump will stick with NATO. He's made it stronger by the investments he made the European countries put in. The fact that Europe is talking much more about its own security is great for President Trump, because that's something he's been trying to prompt for a long time. There's a third part of this, so that the president is acutely aware of. Europe is still important to the world. The European militaries are much smaller than they were during the Cold War. Their weaponry is far behind the United States, far behind Russia, far behind China. I don't think the president wants to leave the continent entirely naked. NATO is still important. Our weaponry is what drives NATO. I think he'll stick it out there, but he's getting them to shoulder responsibilities that they shirked for a long time. But I don't think he'll abandon it now as a pipe dream of people around J.D. Vance and others. But I think right now he knows NATO still being on the table gives him some leverage with Putin. And by the way, Europe couldn't defend itself right now.
Dumb question, John. Putin's having a hard time taking Ukraine.
Yeah.
What would be the risk if we came out of NATO and NATO put Ukraine in
question.
NATO?
Yeah.
Why do we have to be Europe's savior again?
I think that's exactly. Listen, I think Donald Trump's on a long-term plan to make Europe save itself, but he knows they're not there yet, and pulling out aimlessly is like what Joe Biden did with Afghanistan, which is just going to fall quicker. It'll go into greater dysfunction. I think he has an orderly plan that we don't need to. In fact, I think President Trump would love to spend a lot more resources in China. He talked to me last year about, I need a PATO, not a NATO. I need a Pacific alliance. He's building that, but I think he also knows that he doesn't want to waste the 70 years of bloodshed that Americans put on that continent. I think he's on a slow but steady and sure progress to get Europe to shoulder its thing, but they're not ready. If you look at their militaries now, they're not going to be able, even as bad as Russia has done, and people are shocked by Russia's performance. France and United Kingdom would have a hard time. They had a hard time in Afghanistan without America. Our American military and our equipment is superior. It really is.
Tell us about what's going on right now, Zelensky, NATO, whatnot, Trump's positioning.
Yep.
How does that apply to Xi Jinping and Taiwan? What's he reading into this?
Well, he's going to be a little nervous because over the last 4 years, he made Russia sort of a subservient nation to him. And China got a lot of military secrets out of Vladimir Putin and his military in order to get the aid that they needed in the back door, oil sales and other things. I think China likes this relationship with Russia right now because Russia feels subservient, not an equal co-power. And Vladimir Putin, on the flip side of this, chafes at it. He feels like he's under the thumb of China. Donald Trump is trying to exploit that distrust between two countries that have always distrusted it. And I think more than just settling this war, moving China away from Russia and Russia away from China benefits the American interest. And I think when Donald Trump's playing four-dimensional chess here, the media covers this like it's a two-dimensional game. It's four-dimensional with him. He understands getting Russia away from China is important. The nuances of saying we're interested in the minerals, even if we're not going to get them for a long time, that tells Putin, don't you dare attack that place again. He's playing a very sophisticated game.
So he's saying this is going to be a while, and we have a major investment happening. Stay away. Meanwhile, Trump dropped some bombs in Syria with Russian troops on the airfield. Taiwan Semiconductor promises $100 billion. Does that help shield Taiwan from any sort of Xi Jinping aggression when he's doing with Trump?
Perhaps more importantly, it shields America long term because it'll create that capability in our soil that we were the original semiconductor creators, and then we let the business go to Taiwan.
Valley, right?
That's where it started.
How do we lose that?
And we yielded it. In the Obama years, Hillary Clinton was trying to give it away to Russia and other places. They did some Silicon Valley for Moscow, which was just, hey, let's transfer our technology to them. Back in the days when they loved Russia, before they started demagoguing Russia. We have lost a lot of our capabilities here, and I think that this project will help America first, and that's always been Donald Trump's thing. It makes us a little more behind the Taiwanese semiconductor. But at the end of the day, I think Donald Trump's more concerned that we have the capability here in case China ever does take that strike.
It's a big, you know, there's, I think they say there's 2,000 chips in an average new car, BMW, for example, and most of them are coming, a lot of them, 90% from 90%?
Taiwan. Yeah, it's a number.
And we lose that. We're
a very risky
we're
game for us
very
long term.
expensive. John Solomon, really, you know, you can throw this guy any question you want. He's got the smart answer for it. John, really good.
Having you on the network is awesome.
I appreciate
We're
you,
just so
John
proud of it.
Solomon. And by the way, Just the News at 6 p.m., right?
Right.
There you go. All right, folks. We will be right back. Yeah, I know that place. I was just there. That is your White House, folks, the People's House. I hear they're going to start bringing those tours back, where Barack Obama stopped them, Trump brought them back, Biden stopped them. I think we'll probably get them back again. We can actually go there and tour the White House. Again, we own it. We should be able to. Hey, folks, while we may have won this election, the fight to restore our great nation is only beginning. Now is the time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge as America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or convenience. Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service. It's a call to action to defend our rights and freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all three major networks. If you have a cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with a coverage guarantee. But the difference is every dollar you spend supports the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our veterans and first responders. Switching is easy. Keep your own number, keep your own phone, or upgrade. Their 100% US-based customer support team will help you find the perfect plan. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with promo code RAV. Switching to Patriot Mobile today and defend freedom with every call and text you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT. Right. By the way, Justin Trudeau never knows when to stop talking. Unfortunately for a pretty boy, Donald Trump is living rent-free in his head, and it really is starting to show.
So today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake.
Oh, cool. All right, soy boy. Well, Trudeau went on to ask another dumb question, this time addressing the American people. He actually had the nerve to ask what the American people thought about Donald Trump, the guy we all just resoundingly elected.
I think the question that we all need to be watching closely is, what do the American people think?
What do you think we think? He crushed Kamala Harris. We love the guy. He's kicking your butt, Canada. When it rains, it pours for Justin Trudeau. When he isn't making himself sound like a complete moron, he's getting crushed by American politicians. Here's Ron DeSantis absolutely burying the Canadian governor of the soon-to-be 51st state.
Flock to our state and investment to Florida surge. We continue to set tourism records. 2024 saw more than 142 million visitors come to the state of Florida. This includes 3.3 million visitors from Canada. That's not much of a boycott in my book. Maybe they wanted to get a glimpse of what a Stanley Cup winning hockey team actually looks like.
Expert trolling of my governor, Ron DeSantis, of our 51st state governor, Justin Trudeau, before he gets bounced. The stupidity from our northern borders and our neighbors up north actually goes beyond just Justin Trudeau. Here's Pierre Poilievre running his mouth about Trump, just like his little buddy, Justin.
At 12:01 a.m., President Trump stabbed America's best friend in the back. My message to the president is this: Canada will fight back. We will defend our people and our economy, and we will put Canada first.
You're going to fight back how? You're going to tax us, give us export and import fees, which you've been doing anyway? Canada, are you kidding me? We don't need your maple syrup. Are you nuts? Give it a rest. Lower your tariffs. We will too, and you'll survive. If not, all bets are off. Meanwhile, Eric Swalwell, you know him, Mr. I love Fang Chinese spies, that moron, and he proves that every single day for every interview he does. Listen to his latest hot take about Ukraine, which might be one of his worst ever.
If you look around the world, our biggest economic enemy is China. Our biggest geopolitical enemy is Russia. In a matter of 3 years, without losing a single U.S. soldier, we have decimated their military and their economy. It's been the greatest return on investment for any military expenditure ever. And as far as the return on investment for soldiers' lives, it's infinity, because you can't divide zero.
I'm sorry, Eric. I'm trying to do the math here. Let me see. We sent Ukraine $300 billion. We haven't lost any soldiers except the knuckleheads that wanted to go over there, the mercenaries that want to go over there and fight for Ukraine and get paid for it. Other than those, we haven't lost any. So $300 billion, no lie. Sounds like a very, very expensive proposition to me, Eric Swalwell, you freaking moron. What is wrong with you? These are taxpayer dollars. We work hard, work our butts off, pay our taxes, and then you clowns in D.C. send Ukraine our money. And you say that was a great return on our investment? What return? We spent $300 billion. I get the investment. Where's the freaking return, Swalwell? Just keep sleeping with Chinese spies and get the hell out of Congress, please. Another story. Pam Bondi offered some clarity on what's becoming a nightmare surrounding the Epstein documents. Take a listen.
You're looking at these documents going, these aren't all the Epstein files. You know, there were flight logs, there were names and victims' names. And we're going, where's the rest of the stuff? And that's what the FBI had turned over to us. And so a source said, whoa, all this evidence is sitting in the Southern District of New York. Yep. So based on that, I gave them the deadline, Friday at 8, a truckload of evidence arrived. It's now in the possession of the FBI. Cash is going to get me and himself, really, a detailed report as to why all these documents and evidence had been withheld. And, you know, we're going to go through it as fast as we can, but go through it very cautiously to protect all the victims of Epstein.
And so allow me to explain what's going on here. So online, in the social media world, Pam is getting really kind of lit up because she promised the Epstein files day one. And then she got into the office and said she had the Epstein files on her desk. So we were waiting to see the Epstein file. We want to see the list. We want to see the videos. We don't want to just hear about the flight logs. We've seen that. We saw that 10 years ago. We want to see the new evidence, and we assumed that was going to happen. It didn't come out. And then Pam said that, the Attorney General said that these tapes, these videotapes of the freaks that hung out at Epstein Island and such, and in New York at his townhouse, he said the FBI, the Southern District of New York had it, or the FBI in New York had it, and they were going to go hard, and Kash Patel was going to go hard and get those things. But in the meantime, they released some documents, a binder that said, you know, Epstein, and it didn't have anything new in it. So Pam's taking a lot of heat. She's a very talented prosecutor, guys. I'm not sure she wasn't misadvised. The bottom line is I can see that Donald Trump is waiting and just letting this thing play out. And we all kind of should, to see what we got and see what they do have. But they rolled it out by giving some of these documents to some social media influencers, but not everyone, just some. It kind of left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. So I'm going to give Pam Bondi, Attorney General, and Kash Patel, who I'm a very close friend of and with, some time and the benefit of the doubt to get this information to us. I think we're going to get it. I hope we're going to get it. I really, really do, because it's not pretty online right now. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Scott Jennings, meanwhile, it's a conservative guy over on CNN, making a name for himself almost as a one-man demolition crew over at CNN. If you haven't been keeping an eye on CNN's coverage, I can't blame you, but Jennings is becoming must-watch TV. Here's his latest masterclass on how to argue with the people at MSNBC and CNN.
Republicans absolutely voted for this.
Okay, people do not want government waste, that's for sure, but they didn't vote for foresters to get fired.
Look,
they didn't vote for the parks to be closed.
Look, you
veterans to be fired.
You guys keep trying to create this fantasy land where Donald Trump is not popular, where Republicans are mad.
Republicans are mad. He shut down the town halls.
Can you name a single Democrat in Congress who's more popular than Donald Trump right now?
Listen,
Answer, no.
Scott,
the reality is Republicans are so happy with this. They're not upset about it.
No,
the American people are happy about what's going on right now because for the first time in a long time, a president said,
Scott,
I'm actually going to reduce the size of
why.
So I don't know Scott Jennings, never met him. He's doing very well. And I will tell you how difficult it is to be one against many. I do a lot of shows where I'm the only conservative, a lot of liberals. So I have the liberal network. I do China TV, the liberal network, liberal host. They set it up with a liberal reporter, and then there are 3 liberal panelists and me. It's tough. It's hard, but you got to bring the boxing gloves, and Jennings is doing a great job. Also, a lot of people are talking about floating his name to replace Mitch McConnell in Kentucky as the next U.S. Senator of Kentucky. Not a bad idea, really, folks. Really, not a bad idea. So kudos to you, Scott Jennings. Meet you sometime. One more, the Democrats have truly reached rock bottom. A trio of senators from across the aisle, Democrats, Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and Cory Booker were all caught ripping off the exact same tired script and yet another failed attempt to smack Trump.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse, not better. The prices of groceries, gas, housing, eggs, of essentials, it's not getting better, it's getting worse. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has done nothing. Goose eggs to lower prices. Instead, he's pardoned violent criminals who savagely beat police officers
on January.
He's letting Elon Musk take a chainsaw to vital government programs and then, even worse, giving him access to Americans' most sensitive data, Social Security numbers, tax returns, health care bills. He's fired thousands of essential workers, people who help our veterans get their benefits, people fighting Ebola in Africa so it doesn't come here. He's frozen funding for vital programs.
I am laughing because MD in the control room just said, it's the same thing. I was like, that's the point. These clowns didn't even take the time to change a word in their script. We'll be right back. That looks like a Lincoln Monument. Let's do this right away. We don't have a lot of time because I want to get to Steve Bannon, the genius Steve Bannon. Take a listen to this soundbite we put together of Zelensky from Friday and Trudeau from today. Sound a lot alike. Listen.
Let's start from the beginning. Sure. First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem.
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal. But Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see. And now, to my fellow Canadians. I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough, even though we're all going to pull together, because that's what we do.
Well, Mr. Bannon, a couple of world leaders trying to test Trump and making fools out of themselves. Your thoughts, sir?
Your producer or you, Eric, I think pulled the 2 most important clips of everything that's been said in the past couple of days. I think Zelensky, when he tried to lecture Trump, that was the inflection point. President Trump had enough of it. discussion over please leave the White House compound. And today, the disrespect of calling Donald, but he told the Canadian people that, hey, this is going to be very, very, very tough. So those are two brilliant polls, and I think it shows President Trump, whether it's shutting down the war in the Eurasian landmass or kicking off the economic war to change the business model of the United States. And people should know Canada has been screwing us for decade after decade after decade, and finally it's time to pay the piper.
It's a fool's choice to go after Donald Trump. And what they say, if you're going to go after the king, you best not miss. Zelensky missed. Trudeau missed badly today. I'm guessing these tariffs are going to come down very, very shortly. Steve, I won't eat any more of your time up. Love having you, and have a great show, and talk to you later on tonight.